of Southeast and Central Ohio. And I'm here with Kathy Hoover and Luke Menek, attorneys with our low-income taxpayer clinic. Today, we're going to be talking about the Identity Protection PIN program. Feel free to leave a comment or a question, and we'll answer whatever we can. Kathy, to get us started on today's video, what is an identity protection PIN?
An identity protection PIN, or what is commonly known as an IP PIN, is a six-digit number assigned to eligible taxpayers that prevents someone else from filing a tax return using your Social Security number or individual taxpayer identification number. The identity protection PIN is known only to you and the IRS, and it helps the IRS verify your identity when you file your electronic or paper return.
So, Luke, who's eligible for an IRS IP PIN?
So anybody who has a Social Security number or an individual taxpayer identification number and is also able to verify their identity is eligible to enroll into the Identity Protection PIN program. However, the Identity Protection PIN program is usually used by taxpayers who are victims of tax-related identity theft. If you are a confirmed victim of tax-related identity theft and the IRS has resolved your tax account issues, the IRS will automatically mail you a notice with your new identity protection PIN each year.
So, Kathy, how do you get an identity protection PIN?
So the fastest way to receive an IP PIN is by using the online Get an IP PIN tool. You can visit irs.gov and search for IP PIN to locate the tool. If you can't receive the IP PIN online, you can either complete and mail Form 15227, that's 15227, or schedule an appointment at a local taxpayer assistance center.
So, how long does it take for the IRS to issue an IP PIN?
So right now it's taking the IRS more than 4 months to issue an IP PIN. However, last year, 60% of IP PINs took longer than 120 days. So if you need an identity protection PIN quickly, the IRS recommends you apply for one online instead of submitting the paper application.
So, Kathy, what happens if the taxpayer loses their identity protection PIN or doesn't get a new one in the mail?
So if the IRS issued you an IP PIN and either you lost it or didn't receive a one in the mail, you'll need to get your IP PIN before you file your return. You can use the Get an IP PIN online tool we talked about earlier to recover your current IP PIN, or you can call the IRS at 1-800-908-4490 for help. That's 1-800-908-4490. You can call them Monday through Friday, 7 a.m. to 7 p.m. If you call the IRS, they will usually reissue the PIN number by mail, and you'll receive it in about 21 days.
Luke, what happens if the taxpayer used an incorrect IP PIN on their tax return?
So the IP PIN acts as an authentication number to confirm the correct owner of the Social Security number or ITIN listed on the tax return. So if the IP PIN is entered incorrectly and you e-file the return, the IRS will probably reject the return. If you then try to mail your tax return and do not include the IP PIN, it will take the IRS even longer to process the information because they'll need to verify your identity.
Okay, so Kathy, what happens if you file a joint tax return, but only one spouse has an identity protection PIN?
So if you file your tax return and only one spouse has an IP PIN, just list that IP PIN next to the spouse whose PTIN it is. The other spouse does not need to request an IP PIN. Similarly, if you're claiming a dependent that has an identity protection PIN, you will need to include their IP PIN even if you do not have one.
And if a taxpayer needs to amend their tax return, do they have to include their IP PIN?
Yes, so people will need to include that PIN if they need to amend the return. The same requirements for filing an original return will apply to an amended return.
And what if I want to opt out of the IP PIN program? Is that possible, Kathy?
No, so currently there's not an option to opt out of the IP PIN program once that you are enrolled.
Okay, awesome. Great information as always. Thank you, Kathy and Luke. Join us next time when we will be addressing the questions, am I self-employed on Thursday, July 18th? And am I being audited on Friday, July 26th? Remember, you can find this segment on our Facebook page and all our past Tax Chat segment videos on our YouTube page. We have a Tax Chat playlist on there for you. Thanks, everyone, and we'll see you next time.